Newsmen have to put up with a lot of loose talk about how we cover only the spectacular stories and never mention the great silent majority of citizens who are minding their own business. Today is Equal Time Day. We're happy to report that today in Tarrant County there's not one riot on any college campus. There's a lot more. For example, since Commissioner's Court isn't meeting today, there aren't any angry citizens at the courthouse. The Fort Worth City Council isn't in session, so there's no discussion of the garbage bag question. We're pleased to announce that nobody's raising taxes, although there are reports that several public officials are sitting at home thinking about it. You'll be delighted to hear that the post office hasn't raised rates for over a week. Out there in the city, a lot of people are respecting their flag and their country on this holiday, and we understand that several citizens are spending the day telling their children the story of the Declaration of Independence. It's all not news. Isn't it exciting? Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, in a very quiet Fort Worth.
Sometimes I would prefer the 6, and especially if I stop all of them. But for goalkeeper, for any goalkeeper, it's much better if he has to work constantly during the game. It's much easier to keep the concentration, to keep the warmth, and be ready for any difficult shot.
Well, now, do you sort of have to, getting just 6 opportunities to prevent the ball from coming into the net, how do you pace yourself during the rest of the game?
I will try to keep my warmth, just running, making some exercise, and concentrate as much as I could, especially in the first half when I had just a couple of corner kicks too. And in second half, it was much easier, especially in about 15-20 minutes before the end when they had a couple of shots on the goal, and I was ready for that.
Well, a 5-0 lead is a rather comfortable lead for any goalie, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a comfortable lead, but I was afraid that maybe our players will stop in last 10 minutes to play because we had a really hard game Friday night in St. Louis, and we played really in full speed and full condition during the 80 minutes of that game. I was afraid that maybe they will slow down a little bit and give more opportunities to a Greek team to come in the scoring position.
Yeah, for me it is. It's the first time I've been back here since I made that movie.
What are you going to see?
Well, I'm going to take Julie out and show her some of the little towns we shot in. And she's never been to Texas. And
do you have good memories of Texas from the filming?
I don't have any bad ones.
Well, Tom, do you think we'll have a Major League franchise this next year?
Yes, I think we'll have a Major League franchise next spring, Jerry. Now, I must admit to you that I've thought that in springs before, but I'm going to keep on thinking it until some spring it happens.
What is your basis for your renewed optimism?
The feeling expressed in both leagues by many owners with whom I've personally visited face-to-face in recent weeks, that the Dallas-Fort Worth territory is just too valuable to be ignored any longer. I'm convinced that both leagues would like to be a part of this region, and we're trying to convince both of them that they'd better hurry before the other one gets here first.
Let's analyze some of the clubs that are available. The Washington Senators, number one.
I think the Senators are in an impossible situation, whether they move here or somewhere else, if someone beats them here. They are sharing a market with Baltimore, the same fans, the same radio TV territory. The two teams can't survive. They're closer together than Dallas and Fort Worth are one to the other.
Chicago White Sox.
If the league had its choice, I'd say that they'd probably rather move the White Sox than any other, but the White Sox ownership is firmly financed and have not shown too many signs to me that they wish to move. They want to fight the Cubs a little longer.
What do you think about Cleveland?
Cleveland ownership obviously wants to stay there. It's local in nature, but they have serious attendance problems. I think there is strong sentiment within the league, if not in the Cleveland ownership itself, that time has run out for them. So with that view in mind, we're certainly actively pursuing this particular possibility.
San Diego?
The attendance figures speak for themselves. They're in big trouble. They're in Southern California, where there are 3 teams in Dodger country, and 2 of them are suffering because of it. I have severe doubts that San Diego can make it on its own. We're certainly going to keep calling on them.
And for a Major League franchise, would you put up with Charles Finley?
Yes, sir, because along with Charles Finley comes one Vida Blue, and perhaps the most exciting young team in the major leagues now.
The people of Texas have an opportunity during the next Lieutenant Governor's term of office of improving their basic form of state government. We now have a system characterized by a lack of flexibility that ordinary prudence requires effectively to operate a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. We have a system characterized by the recurrent crises that are the mark of our current form of state government. The opportunity that I refer to, of course, is the Constitutional Convention that the legislature has proposed to the people for the spring of 1974. Texas state government is handicapped by being forced to function under a charter almost a century old, and which contains a great deal of material that should be the subject of statutory rather than constitutional law. For example, even specific rules of procedure for the 2 houses of the state legislature are included, needlessly included, in the Constitution.
At the previous meeting of the Welfare Board, when this was under consideration, I did make a suggestion that, in my opinion, we were undoubtedly going to find that there was malnutrition or hunger in areas where the economically economically disadvantaged people are living. We know that there is this. What I would rather do would be for us to see if we can't gather together resources and a project with finances to run a control effort to see if we can alleviate malnutrition, to make a study of it in that manner.
How would you fund this pilot study?
Well, again, we would go on the same basis. We'd seek sources that are working, that are already existing for this. We've already had some turn downs. We'd just continue our efforts to see if we couldn't develop the funds.
Mr. O.L. Nims donated this building to the county free of charge about 3 months ago.
I understand this is your 6th location in Dallas County.
This is correct. This is our 6th location, and I imagine I could safely say this is would be one of our largest operations in Dallas County, whereas we will be serving on an average, within about 5 months, close to about 3,500 to 4,000 people, families that is.
Is this a more convenient location than the one you formerly had?
Yes, it is, because the majority of these people, well, practically all of these people, were receiving their food at the Harry Hines Distribution Center on our Harry Hines. We have transferred over 2,000 of those cases here at this particular center, and we have left only 2,000 cases at the Harry Hines Distribution Center.
So it started with the French Championships. By the time we got to Wimbledon, there was a storm brewing. We spent a week there with negotiations and talks with the ILTF, the International Lawn Tennis Federation, and the end product of it was that the talks broke down and we couldn't come to an agreement.
How many countries in the world are members of the ILTF?
I think there are 98 countries that represent the ILTF, ranging from the big countries like the United States, Great Britain, France, and Australia, who have 12 votes each, to the smaller countries like Monaco, who has 1 vote.
In your opinion, is the ILTF run in a modern vein?
No, absolutely not. I think that it's almost impossible to do business with an organization that is so broad and has so many committees, and getting decisions reached in a good manner is just incredible.
Do you think the British press was prejudiced in releasing what they did of the meetings between WCT and...
Well, they released a lot of things that were very inaccurate, and generally speaking, what they did was instead of saying that these are the points that are to be discussed, they said that these are the points that World Championship Tennis are demanding, and we weren't demanding anything at all. We were saying these are 10 or 12 points that we would like to discuss to see whether we can come to a mutually agreeable point of view. So they, I think, misinterpreted our actions and those statements.
This sheaf of papers includes the new desegregation plan voted on by the Fort Worth School Board today in special session. The plan basically is this. The faculties of each school would be composed of 78% white teachers, 22% black teachers with a 12% tolerance. In addition, the city would be broken into 5 areas called clusters, with the schools within that area located inside the cluster. Students would attend kindergarten and the 1st grade in their home school, that is to say the school nearest their home, and then between 1 and 3 years of their schooling within the cluster. If they live more than 2 miles from the school to which they're assigned, they would be bused, with the state picking up the tab. The faculty paragraph passed the school board vote, but the cluster proposal failed. I asked Board Vice Chairman Bill Elliott, what happens now? Bill, now that you've eliminated the cluster situation out of the proposal, what are you going to have to put in there in order to satisfy the courts?
Well, this will be up to the courts to decide. Jerry, I hope they buy the plan that we present to them.
Well, you're presenting it without the cluster situation. Do you think really they're going to accept this?
Well, I hope they do. Of course, who knows what the courts will do. I don't really know, but I hope they'll accept the plans of the neighborhood school concept, that people go to the schools of their neighborhood and that you don't bust children. That's the issue. And I hope the courts will uphold us on that.
Do you anticipate putting another paragraph in there, something similar or maybe something completely out of left field?
I hope not. I hope our case is strong enough. If it's not, I'm sure that they'll maybe give us another chance at it, or they'll bring in other agencies to discuss the situation.
Although the chambers were packed at the school board, only a few people came forward to discuss the proposal with the board. There was some voiced opposition, but mostly people were there simply to ask questions. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
The committee first learned of this from a telephone call from City Secretary Bateman, who had first learned of this from a telephone call from one of the employees in the Corporation Court administrative staff, who I understand had first learned of one of these tickets quite by accident, simply in processing tickets, which was his job, came across this and made the City Secretary aware of it. And once the committee was aware of it, we asked for a full investigation of this situation, and this developed the 5 tickets that are in question.
What should the judge have done when his son appeared before him with these traffic tickets?
Well, the judge should have, the least he should have done would have been to refer all of these tickets to the other judge for the Judge Drago to handle, instead of passing on these cases himself.
Simply because I wanted to be a party to the lawsuit to represent my interests.
And what are those interests?
The way in which I'll be affected by the transportation possibilities of some of the proposed school plans.
Will you be put to a hardship by that plan?
Yeah, I believe so. It would cost me a lot of money. I don't know what the plans are, so I can't say. There's been, as you know, so many alternate plans proposed. I don't know. I know that the worst of them certainly would require transportation of my family. It would be impossible.
motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye. I'd like to appoint Mr. Cal Druxman, executive of KXOL. Cal Druxman, D-R-U-X-M-A-N. D-R-U-X-M-A-N. Yeah. C-A.
I have an appointment to make. I'd like to appoint, and I'm real proud to, on both of my selections, my first being Bob McFarland, attorney in Arlington. Bob is...
What firm is he a member of, Mr. Cribb? I mean, Mr.
He's with Mr. Maybe. No, he's with Mr. Cribb.
Well, in my opinion, I think that most of these drug education programs that I have seen throughout the United States should be scrapped. I know that's sort of heresy to saying that, but the programs I'm talking about, those where law officials come in without complete knowledge and where teachers are not trained to do the job properly, they don't know what to teach to the children, and then teaching just a pharmaceutical or pharmacology is not enough. I think there has to be more.
Well, what drug program should be instituted then? Should it be a textbook program? Do teachers need more education? Or should it just be people coming in that have been on drugs to teach children? How should this be done?
I think that things that have worked have been those people who have been pushers. They've used those to teach the teachers. There are some good curriculum out that have been very effective for drug education. Of course, I worked with this in the state of Nebraska, and there are some good things. But just to teach kids, you know, this is a amphetamine or this is a barbiturate, it's not enough, and it won't work. And we have to do some other things, and that's why I'm here to tell parents what those things are.
What are these things? What is the solution to the drug problem?
I think it starts in the home. One thing, to be very frank, I think the television stations have been pushing drugs for a number of years by their commercials, and this is a network problem. I think we have to do something there. I think mom has been pushing drugs. She's one of the biggest drug pushers with her diet pills, with her example. Our hospital has a large problem of overdosage of aspirins. These are the drug pushers. I don't think it's the mafia type of character we have to attack right now. It's in the home and in the media, video media, and audio media.
I think that overall, you know, the talent in the camp is better than it was at any time when I was in Milwaukee. Of course, The one big difference is you've got to have that super player or two that that's going to get it done for you. And I think that our guards are going to be very good, our veteran guards with Freeman and Hamilton and Jones. And I really don't know too much about our up-front players. I know that we do need stronger rebounding and that we do need a backup center. And those are the things that the needs I'm basically trying to fulfill here in this camp.
What are your immediate impressions on some of your top draft choices in these first two workouts?
It's very difficult to tell. Tonight we're going to have our first full-scale scrimmage, but I like the looks of Collis Jones. I think he has to improve quite a bit in some areas, but I certainly think he has the potential to be a good player.
And your impressions on your new coach, Tom Nasalki?
I'm very impressed. I met him in Milwaukee when he was assistant coach there, and I'm very impressed with him.
I like the looks of Gene Phillips. He did some things that I wasn't sure that he was able to do. He did a very good job this morning in our defensive drills. I was very happy with that. I know that he can shoot, and I think he can penetrate. We work some on his ball handling and make sure that that he can achieve some consistency in defense. I think he can be a good pro in a couple of years.
Well, to some degree, it's a whole different ball game. It's just like starting over again, like when you were a sophomore in high school or freshman in college. It's just a whole different type game situation, even though it's still basketball.
How about the contact among the pros?
Well, there's a lot more contact. It's a lot more physical game. There's no question about that. Everybody knows it, and it's something that I think I'll have to learn to adjust to.
How about Gary Nelson?
It's been a little more difficult to tell because the players have all been working very hard and trying to make an impression. When you're a center and you don't have an organized plan, a pattern of play as yet, everybody kind of is chasing after the ball, so to speak, and it's hard for a center really to get in there and operate with his cutters, knowing where everybody's going. But I think in another day or so, after we're in a more organized situation, as we get the squad cut down a little bit more, I think we can tell more about Gary. It's easier for a forward or a guard to stand out early than it is for a center, unless it's Kareem.
I like it a lot. I like the weather. It's not dirty. It's a pretty city, and the people are awfully friendly.
Do you feel there will be a great deal of difference between college ball and pro ball?
Already I'm noticing it. There's a little more contact, which doesn't bother me at all.
Brother is one of the oldest turtles in the race, is that right?
Yes.
What race did he win?
Well, he won the 5-yard sprint.
Charles, how long have you had this turtle?
Oh, about 3 months.
How did you train him for the big race?
Oh, we just let him go on the grass, and we would just urge him on. We'd pat him on the ground, and he'd go real fast.
Charles, why didn't you decorate your turtle?
Well, because if you paint him, well, the paint will kill him, and it'll deform his shell, and it'll finally die.
How many ribbons did he win today?
Well, he won 2 this term.
I think the courts will make the final determination in this. I have long felt that what we must strive for is excellence in education for all of our children, black and white alike. And I believe that busing purely for the establishment of some mythical racial percentage can be a deterrent to good education. And what we ought to strive for really is excellence in education. I believe in the neighborhood school concept. Well, I hope very much we can get inflation under control, but I think it'll be a very serious mistake if they try to escalate interest rates and a monetary policy to anything that approaches the levels it reached before the elections of November last year. And I would hope that the administration correctly read the results of the election and would try to control inflation by other than just monetary policies alone. What other policies would you suggest? Well, I think that you're going to have to see more jawboning on the part of the administration and trying to get reasonable increases in prices and wages and trying to discourage unreasonable ones. I noticed that this last meeting that the President had with leaders of industry and labor, that he was very soft-spoken in his jawboning. I think you have to put more muscle into it.
I've had some calls from my friends this week that Judge Green's contacted, and I think I can make my own selection of who I want on the board, and I suppose the rest of the commissioners can. And I know he's been doing this every year right after the election, so it really doesn't bother me a whole lot. I'm truthfully believe that I want to do what's best for the citizens of my precinct and of Tarrant County.
I think every one of us wants to, and that's why.
My people out in my precinct, I don't know about the others, but I'm going to stand up for them. I think the judges, the JPs, and the commissioners are honest, dedicated law enforcement people. I don't know what they are in other precincts, but I really feel that strongly, and I think this will prove it. But I just don't like to tie us down to any 30 or 60 days and making a recommendation on something that's been drifting for 40 years.
I don't think that's a necessary aspect. I was just wanting to get out with it.
Mr. Anderson, would you state your motion?
See if this is acceptable with you, gentlemen. I just dropped it down. Now, I make a motion to appoint a committee of 5, one member appointed by each member of the court for the purpose of studying the feasibility of reducing the number of peace justices and constables. Period.